Hello everyone, I'm J-Ando or Jason Andolino, and welcome to Conscious Ground Sound. I'm glad to bring you the review for Tortoise, the Catastrophist, their 7th full-length album release off Thrill Jockey Records. This release comes after a 7-year hiatus since the last album, Beacons of Ancestorship, that was released in 2009. This release also comes after 25 years of Tortoise as a band. The Catastrophist is a very typical Tortoise album. The standout points on it are the uncharacteristic vocal tracks on the record. Before we get into the review though, I want to give a little bit of background about the band for someone who may be watching this review who doesn't know who Tortoise is. Tortoise is a multi-instrumental quintet. Tortoise's sound can be described as post-rock, krautrock, electronic, indie rock, and a mix of many different diverse styles. Each member of the band plays a variety of different instruments and is consistently changing hats on this album and also in their live concerts. John McEntire and John Herndon are mainly the drummers and also synth players in the band. Doug McCombs is mainly the bass player in the band. Jeff Parker mainly handles the role of the guitar. And Dan Bittney plays marimba vibes and baritone saxophone, guitar and bass. Each member plays many different instruments, which creates a very interesting compositional mix that you don't really hear with many other bands. Tortoise's sound overall creates a funky, melodic, rhythmic, textural soundscape that can completely envelop the listener. Some signature examples of their sound are as follows. Bridge over Iguazu Falls off the album TNT. This song has rapturous cascading beauty that uses the marimba for rhythmic and also ambient foundation and swirling of sound. The second song I think you should take a look at is High Class Slim Came Floating In off Beacons of Ancestorship. This song brings both the old school and the new school simultaneous with a strong, hard-hitting beat and melodic synthesizer that is almost a stadium synth rock anthem. Another track and album that explores the high points of their sound is Seneca off the album Standards. The fourth song that you can take a look at is I Set My Face to the Hillside, which is off of TNT, and this is a different, more somber, melancholy, classical guitar and more laid-back version of Tortoise. But that's enough about Tortoise and what their sound is like. Let's get down to the review. This is Tortoise, the Catastrophist. The title track on the album is the first track, The Catastrophist. It misleadingly lures us in with this 70s game show cheesy synth that breaks way to a more lush bass and drum groove. John Herndon describes a catastrophist as someone who only sees terrible things happening. This is obviously the main theme of the album and also a reflection on the times that we're living in. And we'll talk more about that in our closing for the review. Overall, The Catastrophist is an excellent track with a driving drum beat and the appearance of a Farfisa organ, which I absolutely love. The second track, Oxduke, starts out with a great drum break right in the beginning of the song. Oxduke also contains one of the most interesting things about Tortoise, which is their use of alternate time signatures. The song has a bar of 4/4 and then a bar of 5/4. You can call it 9/4. I don't know, it's for you to decide, but very rhythmically interesting and complex. Also, the track is called Oxduke, the Duke of Oxes. Need I say more? This brings us to our third track, Rock On, which is a cover of a David Essex song, 1973 hit. This is one of two vocal tracks on the album that are completely uncharacteristic of Tortoise and came as a real surprise. The vocals are delivered by Todd Millman of the Chicago-based band US Maple. Todd Millman gives a great delivery of Rock On. Hey kids, rock and roll, rock on. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That's the song. Rock On is quite an odd choice for Tortoise to put on the album, something that came completely unexpected. This track signals maybe a new direction in the band, and also, I think, a really good sense of humor. And it probably is in some way an inside joke. I could see this song arising out of a jam session where the band was playing, or maybe it was someone was playing a line and they said, hey, what is that you're playing? Oh, that's that song, that's that Rock On song. And maybe it came out of this type of practice or interaction. I have to admit, when I first heard Rock On, I inwardly cringed. And I thought to myself, Tortoise, why are you covering this song? Why is this song on the album? But after subsequent listens, I realized that they were owning this song and it was really actually pretty good. Along with the great vocal delivery of Todd Millman, there's also this slow drag drum beat and also the use of horns, which really give a nice accent to this piece. The fourth track off the Catastrophist is Gopher Island. Gopher Island is this funky electronic little tidbit, little soundbite that is only about a minute. Gopher Island sounds like it would be a nice background theme music for an advertisement for the Catastrophist. It also sounds like it could be the soundtrack to a really good video game. And I just wish it was longer. That's my only complaint. I think it really lends itself to more development melodically, and also it could use some improvisation, I think. This piece, I predict, is going to be really interesting to see live. While Tortoise is not necessarily a typical improvisational band who takes solos, they are known to improvise with the form of the piece and sometimes take it out a little bit and extend parts of the song. The fifth song in the album is Shake Hands with Danger, and this is a more typical vibes and guitar driven song. Shake Hands with Danger goes along with this Catastrophist theme. It has a somewhat sinister vibe. It also has an angular guitar and a funky midsection bass. The darkness and urgency in the song, I think, will make this a really good live track as well. Speaking of live performances, Tortoise just announced their world tour. Tortoise will be touring over much of the United States, throughout Europe, and also some dates in Canada as well. The sixth track on the album is Clearing Fills. This track is a pensive, contemplative, piano-driven piece with a drum machine and also vibraphone. This is one of the few tracks on the album that has a softer, more empathetic feel to it. The Clearing Fills shows yet another side of Tortoise's music, which is its very human side despite its very electronically mixed sound. This is the kind of song you want to listen to while you're traveling and looking out the window. Maybe you're on the train. It has a very contemplative sound. The seventh track on the album is Gesap. I think that's how it's pronounced. This was the pre-release track that got us all really excited for what the Catastrophist was and what it was going to be like. Gesap turns out to be an Old English or Proto-Germanic word meaning Gesap is another alternate time signature song that is in 6/8. John Herndon also commented in his interview with Bandcamp Weekly that his upcoming tour, he hoped they could keep it together. I can't help but think that he was talking about Gesap and Oxduke with their odd time signatures and difficult rhythmic patterns. Besides its odd time signature, Gesap is built upon a repetitive synth rhythm that drones and builds throughout the piece. It sits on top of an interesting drum beat with drag snare rolls. This piece is very minimalist and very a la Philip Glass influence. Gesap is also the most prominent piece on the album at 7 minutes and 37 seconds. Overall, Gesap is one of my favorite songs on the album. Because of its length, it really pulls you into the Tortoise world. Upon listening and re-listening to this album to get a better feel for it, it really helped to listen to it in headphones and also to turn the sound up. Tortoise's music is music that you feel with your body just as much as you hear with your ears. And on this track, that's especially true. The 8th track, Hot Coffee, is a completely awesome song. This song breaks in with funky guitar, bass, drums, and synth. It's very reminiscent of Funky Meter style, but Funky Meters of the future with synthesizers. Tortoise style. This song is a great synth and guitar melody, and I have a feeling it's going to be one of those real live gems as well. The B section has these open hi-hat hits and rhythmic accents. This theme becomes more developed in the C section that just explodes with these rhythmic hits, and then it comes back down right in the pocket once again. The 9th track on the album, Yonder Blue, is the second uncharacteristic song in the album that features Georgia Hubley of Yo La Tengo. Yonder Blue is very loungy and atmospheric, and it's a love song with some great lyrics. The chorus states, "I'll fill the ocean with tears until I find you." It's a longing love song, which is really interesting to hear on a Tortoise album. More than any other track on this album, this one gives great promise of a collaboration between Yo La Tengo and Tortoise. These are two bands that are progenitors of the style of indie rock and also post-rock. I would really love to hear more of this collaboration in the future. I would even go so far as to say it would be great to hear about an entire album with Tortoise and Yo La Tengo collaborating. It could be something in the vein of the sounds of Science by Yo La Tengo, or likened to Millions Living Will Never Die by Tortoise. Yonder Blue is a great surprise on the album and something that I think was a smart move on the part of the band, because it adds this whole other dimension to them as a group and also the album. The 10th song, Tesseract, bubbles up with a modulating bass ostinato and the return of the Farfisa organ. This song also has an interesting rhythmic component and drum beat where the snare is hit on the end of the beat, almost making it seem like it's an alternate time signature. But really, I think the song is in 4/4 time. It's kind of deceptive. Last track, number 11, At Odds with Logic, is one of the smoothest tracks on the album. It features beautiful reverb-drenched guitar that are held out in these fermatas. At Odds with Logic also has this meandering bridge that seems like the band is lost, but then it leads to this Spinal Tap fuzz-face guitar that is just brilliant. This is a fantastic closing statement for the album and is definitely not a weak song padded at the end. This is a strong finish, without a doubt. In closing, I highly recommend The Catastrophist by Tortoise, and I think this is a wonderful new album. I would give this album a rating of 8 out of 10. One of my criticisms is that some of the songs could have been longer, such as Gopher Island. Tortoise has that way of enveloping you with their sound and drawing you in, and those longer songs do that and take you to that place. I also give The Catastrophist an 8 out of 10 for the band making us wait so long for their next release. I say this because Tortoise is such an important band And like many people, I want to hear more releases more often, and I really hope that they are more active with recording and touring. Let's face it, Tortoise started a new musical genre, and they made a significant contribution to the world of music. There are some critics that said this album is not as cutting edge as some of their previous albums, and hinted at the band getting older and not being as sharp about what they release. This album would be a seminal release in the catalog of any other band. But because Tortoise has a back catalog of such brilliant and excellent albums, I can see maybe why people are thinking this is not as relevant as some of their earlier stuff or as cutting edge. But after multiple listens, it really dawned on me about how good this album actually was, and also what the potential of the live performance of these songs would be. As far as the themes of the album, the title track, The Catastrophist, is an obvious theme on the album. In addition to some of the other tracks such as At Odds with Logic and Shake Hands with Danger. These three tracks bring to mind a darker side. Of course, I can't speak definitively on what the theme of the album is, and it's open to interpretation. The Catastrophist almost seems to be somewhat of commentary on our times that we're living in. Times rife with media disinformation, political demagogues, and false flag operations. The theme of the Catastrophist is not overtly stated on the album, besides its namesake. But the aforementioned tracks, the dual two-faced photos on the front and back cover, lend themselves to an interpretation and also a message. The only tracks that give sort of a respite and different thematic approach are Yonder Blue, which is essentially a love song, and Clearing Fills, which has more of a meditative feel. The Catastrophist is an excellent release. With continuous listens, you'll realize this album really is incredible, and another amazing Tortoise album that is well thought out, has interesting melodic and rhythmic themes, and a plethora of musical moods. This is J-Ando with Conscious Ground Sound. Thank you for joining me for my first review of Tortoise's The Catastrophist. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in the near future.